Alan Rickman is here. He's an actor who has tackled everything from Shakespeare and Ibsen to Die Hard and Sense and Sensibility. In recent years, he's appeared as Severus Snape in the Harry Potter films. Here's a look at some of his work.
The following people are to be released from their captors. In Northern Ireland, the 7 members of the New Provo Front. In Canada, the 5 imprisoned leaders of Liberté de Quebec. In Sri Lanka, the 9 members of the Asian Dawn movement. I read about them in Time magazine.
Maybe I didn't die properly, and maybe that's why I can come back. It was like standing behind a glass wall while everybody else got on with missing me. It didn't hurt. You know, I'm very sensitive to pain.
You!
Loxley?
The king shall hear of this!
Join us.
Never.
Join us or die. I have described Mr. Willoughby as the worst of libertines. But I have since learnt from Lady Allen that he did mean to propose that day, and therefore I cannot deny that his intentions towards Marianne were honourable. Stand back.
As I was saying, prior to your firefighting episode, I am the Metatron. Don't tell me the name doesn't ring a bell.
Invite him out for a drink, and then after about 20 minutes, casually drop into the conversation the fact that you'd like to marry him and have lots of sex and babies.
You know that?
Yes. And so does Carl. Think about it, for all our sakes. It's Christmas.
This is a false trail. The Aura Office no longer plays any part in the protection of Harry Potter. Those closest to him believe we have infiltrated the ministry.
His latest project, Seminar, brings him back to Broadway for the first time in nearly 10 years. He stars as a burnout novelist who savages the work of 4 younger writers. John Lahr of the New Yorker magazine has written of his performance, "There is nothing quite like being in the presence of his cool, ironic hauteur, which is at once dangerous and delightful." I am pleased to have Alan Rickman back at this table. Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here again.
Thank you. And I'm a bit under the weather with some kind of cold that's going around, so...
I can relate that clip you just saw of from Deathly Hallows. I was so ill that day.
Yeah. Tell me about voice in acting. Because you talk often about your love of English and command of the language, but I'm also fascinated by great voices and what they can do.
Well, if my voice teachers from drama school were here now, they would tell you that it was the biggest problem I had in training, and that they were trying to... One teacher said, you have a voice that sounds as if it's coming out of the back end of a drain pipe. So there was a great deal of hard work going on. It's whatever one's voice is a mixture of an accident of nature, because it's like, what's the architecture of the inside of your mouth? I happen to have this very high roof.
Yeah.
So I suppose there's some kind of resonance chamber there, which is as much a curse as it is a blessing, because you have to work really hard to make a forward sound, otherwise it all gets trapped.
Where did you learn to act?
Well, whenever young actors now say to me, "What advice do you give me? You know, I'm thinking about training, I want to be an actor," or whatever. I say, forget about acting. And I really mean it at that point in time, because whatever you do as an actor is cumulative. It's about, so I say, go to art galleries, listen to music, know what's happening on the news in the world, and form opinions, develop your taste and judgment, so that when a quality piece of writing is put in front of you, your imagination, which you've nurtured, has something to bounce off of.
Yeah, and your uniqueness.
Yeah, and then you have to start learning about courage, I think.
Courage?
Yeah, because you have to be courageous with yourself on stage, I think, emotionally. I was talking about this morning, actually, because I watched a while ago, jumping about here, but I watched one of those TED Talks with Jill Bolte Taylor.
Yeah.
Talking about having...
She's been here.
Right, when she had a stroke.
Right.
And she's there on her TED Talk, holding up a brain and showing the two halves of the brain and saying, here's the analytical side and here's the imaginative side. And it made me think that actually one thing that actors and dancers, singers, musicians do is to actually use both sides of their brain at the same time, because you have to hand yourself over completely to whatever are the emotional demands of a part, but certainly on, well, and in front of a film camera, but certainly on stage, there's this kind of Geiger counter, this laser or something that is at exactly the same time assessing what's happening out there and what's happening there to the person you're talking to. And did this word land, or now that one didn't land, now I'm going to have to pick up that word. But at the same time, the bit of you that doesn't know it's lying, because of course we're divided from the neck up. It's just a load of lies. But the rest of you has no idea that it's lying. So that's the punishing part of acting, is taking the rest of your body into this strange place that it finds it hard to recover from.
And if it's not resonating, and with your Geiger counter, it's not resonating, you assume you're not doing something right rather than something wrong with them.
Audiences form a oneness every time you go in front of them, whether it's quiet or raucous. You know, this play we're doing, sometimes it's like being at a rock concert, and other nights it's very quiet, because it's a very funny play. So we have this nightly kind of series of boxes that you can tick backstage, and they got that, they got that, they didn't get that. And it's dangerous to judge an audience, because sometimes those quiet audiences are really listening. And in the case of this play, perhaps because of Harry Potter, there are a lot of young people out there, and quite a lot of them afterwards are saying, this was my first time at a Broadway show. And so you've got to be tender.
Harry Potter was a gift to you then, because it gave you a new audience.
Yeah, well, they were 10 or whatever age they started reading in 2000, and now they're all, like the three actors, like all of the actors in it, they're all grown-up adults. So it was a new audience of children, and I get letters from people saying, I grew up with these films or these books. They were part of my childhood. That's a pretty unique thing to have been part of, and I think we're all still processing what that means, what it meant, and what it will mean.
If you were asked to put one performance, whether a film or theater, and say, I'm leaving this is who I was, what would it be?
That would be a dangerous thing to answer, but I'm pretty sure that it might be one or two of the things that I had the worst reviews for.
Are you serious?
I think so, yeah, because there are things that you go, well, I'm going to hang my hat on that one. And it means that you went out on some sort of limb, not in an indulgent way. Hopefully you did the work and made the choices, but yeah, there have been a few of those where you think, well, that isn't maybe what people are expecting. And we're probably talking about classics, where people they come with received ideas. And if you pull the rug out a little bit, people get upset.
If you are always worried about making a mistake, you will never go over the top, right?
And if you hand well, maybe it's a similar thing, you able ultimately to hand yourself over to the material. You trust the material enough. You've got to be very picky about the work you do, I think.
You've been picky?
And reckless. Yeah, but, you know, picky today might not come up with the same picks as 5 years ago or 8 years ago. You know, you're constantly putting a finger up to a different wind, depending on who you are at a certain time, and also, has to be said, what's offered to you.
You were once a dresser for somebody who was in a performance with Ralph Richardson.
Nigel Hawthorne.
Nigel Hawthorne. And what did you learn watching him?
Well, both of those great actors. Yeah. I mean, Ralph Richardson, I couldn't tell where the acting was. That was the thing. I didn't know where the words were coming from. You know, you think you can spot the machinery.
Yeah.
I can see how he shaped that sentence, or she. I can feel the thought process. I can see them placing a word against that not with him at all. I did not know where one word was coming from. That was linsanity, if you like. It
yes, it was
complete, and he was crazy too, in a weird way. You know, you just pass him on the stairs in the theatre, and I was this lowly dresser. I was studying at RADA at the time.
Right.
You just meet this great man, and he went, hey ho. And then he'd get on his motorbike and go home.
When you were approached by this production, what did you grasp for it? Did you say, this is what I want to do, or did you have reservation?
I kept saying no. I mean, I know Teresa Rebeck well and love her writing, and she really wanted feedback, and so she sent this play about 2 years ago, not particularly, unless she was being really crafty, but as far as I know, it was just, what do you think about this play?
Yeah, rather than trying to reel you in.
And as I recall, I didn't write back a kind of summation of anything. I thought, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I went through the play with a blue pencil and just, as an actor, cut everything I thought was too much. And said that, don't need 3 of those, cut that. Because she writes wonderfully, but as she herself will say, probably overwrites. So I just went through it and said, here's what I, as an actor, think about this. Don't need these things. Send it back to her. And she had a reading of that version, and then time marches on, and I was here a year ago at BAM,
right,
doing John Gabriel Borkman, and so we had a reading of the play, and I was still saying, I'll do a reading of it. I'm still not doing the play, because I thought I was too old for it, but we did the reading, and she'd put in a speech at the end, which was entirely related to the edited copy I'd sent. I have this speech at the end of the play where he talks about the only way to learn anything about writing is to have a decent editor go through it word by word for you, to show you what it is, what you meant, what you didn't even know you meant. And that speech she put in as a result of getting this copy back from me. Not that I did it beautifully, but it was just waking her up.
That's what art's about, really, isn't it? Refining and refining and refining, trying to find the purest piece.
Yeah, less is more.
Produce less is more, always. Yeah. So when you set out to do it and you made a commitment, was there preparation for you, or are you at the point where you can, once you get the text, you know where you're going to go? I mean, are you in search of who he is?
It's so speakable, the dialogue in the play, that in a way you just had to get on the kind of train of it and ride. I said to her, I thought after the reading that she'd written a fairly naturalistic modern play, and I said to her with some bitterness in rehearsals at one point, I said, you've written a restoration comedy here. It's an English 18th century play, because these are people living in Manhattan, earning a crust, living normal lives, talking what seems to be normal stuff to each other. But actually, when you start to work on it, incredibly intricate sentences and a real love of language, and very precise and specific language. So then the work really started, because you realize it's an acting exam as well. It's how the hell, it's like Bernard Shaw, how the hell do I get from the beginning of this sentence to the end of it, and the only way I'm going to make sense of it is on one breath.
Who is Leonard?
Well, he seems to be an advocate for tough love all the way through, and he seems to be pretty brutal about it. You know, he's been hired by these 4 young writers.
$5,000 a pop, yeah.
And over a 10-week period, and he goes in once a week and The gentle word would be critiques their work.
The less so gentle would be tough love.
Yeah.
And the least gentle would be brutal. Yes.
He's a truth teller. That's the point. He tells the absolute unvarnished truth.
Yeah. And does he do that because he relishes it or because that is his moral code?
Well, as the play moves towards the end and you learn more, he does put them all in the right place. He figures out who they all are. The one of them that he thinks might be the real talent is the one that he will not let go of. And he kicks and pushes him, and it becomes quite verbally violent between the two of them. But it's because he knows there's something there. And then you get to see who he really is at the end when you go to his home, and he's in a kind of safer environment.
You get to know him in his own home.
Yeah, and you see that there's vulnerability. Otherwise it wouldn't be very interesting to play.
Yeah, some people say that what you always have to do in playing anybody that has a certain nastiness about them is find their vulnerability. Find some...
Well, you know, you can't...
Fragile.
You can't judge a character you're playing, otherwise you can't play it. So I don't even recognize words like nasty.
Yeah. You can't judge a character, otherwise you can't play it.
Well, you shouldn't judge a character. You should just say, what does this person want? And how do they go about getting it?
Yeah.
If you start saying, that's bad, that's evil, that's good, that's honorable, you don't. You're looking at the people that you're speaking to, you have needs, wants, and you pursue them. Different characters pursue them in different ways. Other people make the judgment.
Does teaching interest you?
Well, I'm very involved with the Royal Academy that I trained at. I don't really teach, but I go in and talk or answer questions. I don't really have anything to say until somebody asks me a question, because you're still figuring it all out.
Well, does directing interest you?
Oh no, I've started to direct. The last thing I directed came to BAM 2 years ago, and it was a Strindberg play called Creditors, which I loved working on. 3 actors, 1 set. That was brutal. But that's
You were brutal, or
Strindberg.
what was brutal?
I hope I wasn't brutal, but I was certainly Leonard-like in asking for the truth relentlessly. And I think if you're working on a piece like Strindberg, for it not to seem just willful, and to give it a sense of real purpose, and for it to be very funny.
I'm very much interested in the pursuit of truth, you know, I mean, and how people go about that.
I don't write, you know, I just live in awe of people who write from nothing.
Because you love the English language so much.
I do, but, you know, you've either got that or you haven't. What my job is to interpret, and, as I said, to be a channel for a writer. So I will alter my instrument in whatever way I should, in terms of how my imagination meets it. And you know when there's a connection, when images start to jump off the page. That's when you start to say the word yes to a job. You go, well, I can't say no now because there are these images and I just got to do that. So it's not often, not even conscious, but I think you can tell when truth is happening in the theatre, when you feel real concentration between actors, and it transmits to the audience, and the audience, as I said, becomes one animal. And there are times in this play when a silence descends that is tangible, and when a laugh happens that's like one noise.
And do you know what it was that got you there? To that kind of point?
Sometimes it's purely technical. You can actually say, if you rush this moment, you won't include them. They won't understand. If that word isn't clearly placed, it won't have any impact on that word. But then you know these details, and then sheer timing things. You know, there's a few moments, like one in this production, which is all about this, me coming in, saying a line, and then the slam of the door. It's because people are following a story, the door slam makes them laugh.
And what's happening to them? Not the audience, but these 4 students.
I hope they're, in the story, figuring out who they are. They all want to be writers, and by the end of the play, as I say, he has helped them to be placed in some form of writing world. Not all of them as novelists, but figuring out what they're going to do with this talent or this desire that they have to be writers.
Does brilliance come from facing fear, or does brilliance come from something else?
I think that, you know, any actor would sit here and give you different answers. I know that there are actors who I know and who I respect highly who can't wait to get out there every night.
Yeah.
They're like pawing the ground.
Oh,
with
they're
their
like
wings.
quarterbacks, you know.
Yeah, and there are other actors, which would be the camp that I'm in.
I know.
Just going, how quickly can I get back to the dressing room?
Yeah. Really?
In a sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's good. People say, are you enjoying doing the play? I don't have the sense of enjoyment.
What do you have a sense of?
Trying to meet the challenge of it and trying to look into the eyes of your fellow actors and know that something rare is happening, but only fed by the play, and feeling that the play, a sense of the play, the actors and the audience are all in the same space at the same time.
Yeah. I've read something in which you sort of looked at acting, you didn't sort of take yourself all that seriously in terms of what was happening.
Judy Dench, you know, this is quoting somebody else, but I think she said, the thing is to take the work seriously, but to take yourself not seriously at all.
Right, exactly right. On the other hand, you know, everybody that I know who's really good at something, somewhere takes it really seriously. They don't have to necessarily reflect that, but there is a very seriousness of focus and intent and discipline and even repetition.
Yeah, well, I've had some very good teachers, and they make you aware of the cliff face that you're standing on, and you know, made this choice, you're going to do it. Now take the risks. Peter Brook, when I was first at Stratford, he was directing Antony and Cleopatra. He came back after it was on to see us during the run, and we'd meet him in the rehearsal room, and he'd say, so how's it going? And we say, well, this is working, that's not working. This is better than that was, we still can't with this. And he said, you know, it always amazes me that when I come back to see, especially when you're dealing with a great text like this one, he said, the thing is, you'll never be as good as the play. And I thought, well, that's sort of relaxing in a way, you know.
You'll never be
as good as this play.
Yeah. You also told Jude Law, who was on this program, and we were talking about Hamlet. He said that you said that, look, you have to understand that you know, you can't watch it for a while after you've done it because there's an ownership.
With that play.
With that play, with Hamlet. Yeah. What were you saying?
Because I think it's such a personal journey, that play, that character, that any production will take its identity from the person playing it. And also, however you look at it, it's about somebody who has an acute relationship with an audience and with a group of actors.
Yeah.
Somebody who looks at a group of actors and says, speak the speech, I pray you as I pronounced it to you, on the one hand, and then on the other hand comes rushing on or walking slowly on or whatever, and delivers all those soliloquies to an audience. You know, these are just facts about the play. His big relationship is with the audience and with actors. Everything else is a nightmare. And trying to figure out how he fits in or where he doesn't fit in. So those are just facts. Then it's about your sensibility as that Hamlet, how you make it live for you, and what your politics are, what your imagination is, what your emotional range is. And I'm sure if he were here now, you'd ask him again, can you go and watch Hamlet? It's a very difficult play, because you think, mine. Wrong.
Many people say mine. Yeah. Let me get to a crucial data here, which is that you're going to be in this until April 1st.
I am, and then Jeff Goldblum takes over.
And Jeff Goldblum comes, and I thank you for coming. Pleasure.
Thank you.